Welp, I fired up the ESO launcher for the first time in 2025 as I was asked more than a couple times to try out ESO's new Vengeance PvP test server the past week, and honestly, a bit interesting. I'm going to talk today about the good, the bad, and what I think needs to happen next and what that should look like, I guess, from a veteran PvPer's point of view. For those of you unfamiliar with the Vengeance server or Cyrodiil Champions live test, basically this was a very stripped down version of ESO's PvP. To break it down, we had no CP. So this is not too new. This is kind of like the current no CP environment. It's just all CPs disabled. We have no sets, and I mean no sets. Like your armor didn't matter, nothing mattered except what kind of weapon you had just for heavy attack and light attack animations. It didn't matter if it was a legendary or just, a white piece of a resto staff, whatever. Only class skills. And by class skills, I mean they had completely new class skills. They totally remade and simplified them. They're very basic, like frags would do damage, streak would just streak and stun. Very simple things. Heals would just do a single burst heal or a single shield. For the most part, that was about it. Dots would be limited to like 2 ticks on an enemy, and all AoEs were limited to a maximum of 3 targets. That one really hurt. But the limited dots, the limited hots, was very welcome change. We did not have cross healing, things like vigor or resto staff heals, which kind of prop up ball groups. So this test was done to try out performance, and I'm not really surprised that it performed with real high numbers very well. The current Cyrodiil probably has like 60 to 70 people per faction, and its performance issues are really bad. I mean, terrible. This test environment, though, had hundreds on each side. Absolutely no performance issues. So they've done tests like this in the past, but unfortunately nothing ever came of it. They just cut it off, walk away from it, doing nothing really until they address it the following year up front. Maybe Matt Fire will post something on the forums and that's it. We don't really hear anything. This really became the norm over the years, and what's kind of led to the lack of progress. It's just the leadership's been unable or unwilling to seriously commit to fixing this problem. However, after playing this test for a day, I felt it wasn't too far off from an enjoyable environment. This is due to the few pros it's obviously created. Great performance, primarily, but just a more robust environment. There's tons of players involved. It creates those epic battles you expect in an mmorpg. And the cons? Well, let's jump into that and what else ZeniMax needs to do on their side for this to all work. Number 1, promote skill gameplay and skill expression. Counterplay, really. Simplifying combat is fine if you have choices and you are making them. Then it truly feels good to overcome obstacles and challenges based on the choices you make and how you prepare for a fight. I think this is an opportunity as well to bring back simple but effective skills like, old DK wings, things of this nature. There's plenty, every class had different skills that they kind of missed over time. It gave them, class identity, something we lost over the last 5 years or so of balance changes. It's possible, and really it doesn't need to be too complex because none of these skills should be. All this is really done so it's not just Zerg only gameplay, and Siege really being the end all be all. It's the only option that was there to fight outnumbered, and that's never been great when that's your only option. It's in my opinion, Siege, it should really always just be something that is supplementary, and that is all. So what does that mean? Well, that brings us to number 2 point, my personal favorite: raise up AoE caps. And listen, it doesn't have to be on every skill, but maybe try 6 to 8 targets on the next test for AoE skills. For ultimates, maybe it's 12 or potentially even uncapped. Things like the old banner or negate, this made sense to hit at least 12 to uncapped areas for when people just want to overwhelm you with like 40 versus your 10 and just kind of dive bomb on top of you. That felt really bad in this test. But yeah, things like this will equalize the raw zerging. The current 3-person AoE cap, obviously too little, because beyond all this, we don't need CP. We don't need set bonuses right now. These things were just tools that would achieve what our skills should be doing. This is how we created compounding issues. This created problems. Problems ZeniMax used to try to solve by implementing other sets that compounded the issues furthermore. In this test, I could shoot 20 people though with a catapult and not cause lag, so we can probably, allow ulting 12 people and not bring this system to its knees. I think the major buff tracking, the HOTS and DOTS problems this game created was probably the largest issue of its performance. This is really what propped up ball groups. But it's kind of always been a core of the game's combat design, and it's just layered on with additions over the years. So to recapture, focus on class skills, weapon skills, add in some of the PvP skill lines. Just keep it simple, follow that formula. No long-term reoccurring HOTS outside of something like 2 to 3 ticks, and all self-only heal over times. None of this cross-healing over time. Pretty much everything that was there now, keep that. Burst healing in single instances for allies only. All right, absolutely no layering of redundant heals or buffs. That is the appropriate direction to go in. And limiting buffs to a minimum. Simplify whatever buffing system is in place. Putting in 20 different major and minor buffs, it was fun for theory crafting over, again, the last few years, but it has done nothing to benefit this game as far as balance goes. All right, that brings us to, I guess, my third point. Maintaining incentive and showing commitment. Will people keep playing this? It has to be fun. They need to attract the current PvP player base while encouraging others to join in. Now this test, I do believe they captured other people to join in just because it is something new. They always get a lot of people when they do double AP, but they need to do other things proactively through the year to get people engaged and committed to it, and some people find themselves enjoying it. The beauty of this test and the Cyrodiil Vengeance server is it was more simplified though. The barrier to entry is lower. This is key. It's something I begged for to the devs over the years, is they need to not just constantly lower the ceiling of this game and try to make it less skilled at every turn. They just needed to lower the barrier of entry. Not having CP, for example, is just that, where people don't have to have high CP just to get involved, just to try it, just to start learning and not feel like they're just, running uphill. But this has been great for attracting, I think, more casual and newer players to PvP, but they need to keep them coming back. But they also need to keep the PvPers engaged. And I think really the first 2 points kind of hit home on that, where people that run in ball groups and stuff probably weren't out there after, a day or two of this test. It probably just wasn't very fun or interesting. Part of the problem is ESO as a community, it's skewed heavily towards the casual PvE focus over the years, to the point that PvPers, they're generally second-class citizens. I speak with bias on this, but personally, I saw this community morph, after the first 4 to 5 years up through Tamriel 1, shifting into a completely different game and target focus in the 5 years that followed. And, I don't want to go into details here, but they've had their challenges addressing and communicating with PvPers as well. So that's something they need to bridge. It really is. And the reason I think that's important is they can engage PvPers. They can also bring a lot of players back. It's not something that they need to absolutely bring those players back or this won't work. But there are so many players that would come back. There's a lot of opportunity there. They can do this just because other MMORPGs, they don't have consistent PvP environments that are enjoyable like Cyrodiil. So that's a huge point. That brings me to my fourth point, a timely delivery. This is probably the hardest thing I think for ESO to achieve in 2025. I feel like over the years, the budgeting committee over at ZeniMax Online has not been the friendliest to ESO, despite it being a damn successful MMO in a challenging environment. When it comes to combat, this and many games these days seem to have little to no support for their game. It's what strikes me as odd that this test is even happening in 2025, to be honest. But regardless, can they maintain some traction and add in additional content? Delivering a super simple environment, but something that's still fun to PvP in again. I mean, that's it. That's all they need to do. That is mission accomplished. But how long does it take to add the next step and build upon it? Now, the past version of me says things like this, will it even happen? Will it take 6 months? This is something that you'd like to see, I don't know, bi-weekly to monthly written verbal updates on. And hopefully new tests, I'd say like every 45 days or so. But I don't believe it's in their ability to have this traction. But if they could drive something awesome here that's simply fun to log into and partake in. And the damnedest thing is, it doesn't even need to be perfect or close to perfect. I have been living in the MMORPG world for the past decade, making content and streaming, and I can promise you this genre is just filled with greed, incompetence, and failure when it comes to combat development and PvP. But in closing, this test is an interesting direction. One of the better steps they've taken to give us some environment, some vision of an environment that is actually fun and can bring back players, if for nothing else, some short-term entertainment. It gives the devs an environment, though, where they can deliver things they've always wanted to due to its simplicity. So they could roll out things like Daedric artifacts, such as Ariel's Bow or Wabbajack. Because in my heart of hearts, I do think Brian Wheeler's always wanted to bring those things to Cyrodiil, and just not have it perform like complete ass. But the powers that be have just never really given him the budget to do so. So in the end, they always had to add some new systems, flashy skill lines to your character, and combat slowly got worse and worse over time as they added layers upon layers to the game that bogged it down, increasing sales for the next patch. This has kind of been the seasonal DLC recipe that they've kind of unfolded over the Tamriel one and beyond. It saved ESO in a lot of ways. They made a ton of money between that and the Crown Store. They've brought in tons of players. But again, this whole concept is them breaking apart from, what ESO had and what's still great about it. And putting it into a functional environment where they could add new things to it, but just still make it enjoyable, still make it a functional mass PvP environment, actually push limits beyond 100 versus 100, and again, even an opportunity to bring in new players. There is a lot here. There is a bit they could do with it. It's a matter of how much they really want it, how committed they are to delivering whatever they're really trying to do with this. I'm quite interested, to be honest. I'll follow it in passing, and I'm interested to keep checking out updates. So it was definitely a cool test, the Vengeance one. Keep your eyes peeled if you've been somebody that has enjoyed ESO in the past, but you're, pretty dubious about ever wanting to reinstall and fall in the trap again. This could be a good one. So make sure you like, subscribe, check back for more. I'll keep updated on it. Have a good one.